Yes, it's Friday night on the bus, and of course, folks, you know what that means? It's time to get that Friday feeling. Yes, it is a winter break. Celtic aren't playing. There is no game to preview. I know it's sounding really grim already the way I'm starting this show, but trust me, we'll keep you going because, as you can see, folks, tonight is. As somebody described as the other week when we did the show before the Rangers game, the best forward line on the bus. Yeah, the strongest forward line you could play with us. Myself, obviously, I'm joined by Russell, the main bus driver, back on a Friday night. This is becoming a frequent thing now, Russell.
Best behaviour this Friday as well, Phil.
Oh, you were
Best
allowed
Friday.
the last time. It was before the Rangers game. You were allowed to indulge a wee bit.
That's right, mate. That was funny. I might need to nick off at some point because I'm dog sitting this weekend, so I need to go grab Big Megan at some point. Jonathan has decided to drop her off at the latest possible time ever, so if I need to disappear, it'll just be brief and I'll be back on.
No problem at all. And of course, Friday night on the bus wouldn't be the same if myself and Liam aren't on together. It's a tradition, it's bus heritage. Canada's favourite Tim and the wise man of the bus, as I'll always say. Liam, how are you doing today?
Good, man. I'm struggling to keep warm today. I was telling you earlier, minus 20 in Canada today, in Vancouver. Absolutely Baltic.
You see, we're complaining, so it's like -1 over here. Like, oh, it's so cold. Wow, -20. My God. Right. And thanks to Kieran for becoming our newest member. There we go. Thank you very much. Just saw that pop up there as well. So thank you. And of course, you can, of course, become a Boise Bus member for the mere price of $1.99 a month. All our content does, of course, remain free. We're not anything behind paywalls or Patreons or anything like that. It just helps support the channel and keep the wheels on the bus going round and round. And other things you can do as well that do keep the bus going round and round. All that good stuff that I always talk about. Also hit the like button. Helps us out with algorithm, CSC, as I like to say. Also get involved in our comment section tonight. Share the link of the Boise Bus far and wide on whatever social media platform is your poison. And yeah, what else do you need? Oh, subscribe. Obviously, I saw today it was 4,400 something, so we're less than 100 away from 4,500. Getting close. Yeah, the next sort of landmark for us. So yeah, if you've
5,000 by the end of the season, that'd be good.
I think that's I think that's doable. Yeah, 5,000
doable.
Yeah, I reckon so. Hopefully we don't get a spike because of any bad results, because I know recently we had some good viewing figures and a few new subscribers because of bad results. Hopefully it's because of good results. People flock to hear the words of the Boise Bus from far and wide. But yeah, if you haven't done so yet, you haven't subscribed, or keep us in your life that a little bit longer, then be sure to do so and hit the bell notification, and you'll know when we're on the road. And of course, head over to piesports.com, whatever side the logo's on. I always get it wrong when I'm looking into the screen. But yeah, thank you, Russell. Spot on.
That was total 50-50 guess, mate.
I'm always the same. I always get it wrong first time. But yeah, Bus 1888, get yourself 12.5% off your order, your tasty pastry treats. And all that's said and done, and all the good stuff.
Someone commented as well on YouTube the other day, in fact tonight, saying they just bought their first order from Pie Sports.
Yes.
I know. What was his name? I'll try and find it now. It was Alan Mokwa. He was like, nice. just got my first batch of sports pies. Good lad.
Good
sports
stuff,
and pies. Love that. Sports pies. It almost makes it sound like it's healthy.
I know. I was going to say they shouldn't really go hand in hand.
Sports pies.
Yeah, at least elite athletes definitely do not indulge in them, but passengers on the bus can certainly indulge in them. I recommend the macaroni pie, even though I'm not allowed to eat such things nowadays. But yeah, I still would recommend them, because when I did try them, that was what I did have a go of, and they are lovely. So, by all means, head over there and get your orders in. And yeah, with that being said, obviously, we recently guys just did the show last night, and obviously the things have moved on with Nicolas Kuhn signing. It looks like that is a goer. Finally, we've got a bit of substance there. But, you know, rather than, and obviously Kwon, the Kwon artist, that was breaking news tonight. He's off skate, so that's the latest in terms of transfer news. But it looks like Kwon is imminent. Kwon is left and Kuhn is imminent. But yeah, I thought, well, tonight we'll have a wee look at some, because it's Friday feeling. We usually preview an upcoming game, but there is no upcoming game to preview. So I thought, let's try and look at some other things that could be going on in the transfer window, because a thing that always comes up, guys, whenever we've done shows revolving around transfers, we saw it particularly in the summer, is when myself and Russell were always going on about how we thought Brendan was going to do this and bring in this guy and, you know, bring in this big sign. And a lot of people would always point out, yeah, but you've got to keep in mind, you know, we've got to keep a homegrown quota. We've got to bring in players that can fit that, because if we're playing in UEFA competitions, obviously it's going to be something that needs to be registered. We saw it this season where we didn't meet the quota and some players had to get left off in terms of like non-homegrown.
Right.
So it is something that's going to be affected. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to have a wee look and just see if there is anything. Because obviously two names that came up recently. One that doesn't seem to go away is obviously Lawrence Shankland. That name keeps doing the rounds. Some fans are like, yeah, well, I'm all in on that one. I'll take him. And there's many fans who are like, no, not a snowball's chance in hell would I have Lawrence Shankland there. And of course, another name that's came up recently, although I do believe that it has been nonsense by the club about Scott McKenna. Again, it's the same two names that seem to keep doing the rounds. So I thought, surely there must be some half-decent Scottish talent, because at the moment, guys, this is basically the list of our current crop of players who would count as homegrown, because what is the definition that UEFA have got regarding the homegrown stuff? So basically, locally trained homegrown players are those who, regardless of their nationality, have been trained by their club or another club in the same national association for at least 3 years between the ages of 15 and 21. So on top of a maximum squad of 25 players or A-list players, a club has to designate a minimum of 8 slots in their squad that were trained by the club and trained in that association, and 4 of them have to be trained by that club. So in Celtic's case, so they'd have to have 4 out of those 8 have got to be trained as well. So yeah, you're looking at a chance of like 17 foreigners or non-homegrown ones. So that's the type of restrictions we've got to play with. And at the moment, this is what we've currently got. Greg Taylor, of course, Liam's absolute favourite player in the whole world. He's counted as homegrown. David Turnbull, who seems to be running down his contract, and the chances of him actually being here next season are obviously looking pretty slim, but most fans don't really want him to be here next season anyway, so that's probably a good thing, but that frees up a space that will need to be filled. Callum McGregor's going to be here next season. He's a club captain, and he is obviously homegrown through and through. Tony Ralston, I think, is a guy that will just be here till the club basically kicks him. Or I think he'll just be quite happy to just keep signing extensions if they put him in front of him. I think he'll be no problem. James McCarthy, this is a big problem. He is literally there to tick a box. He serves no other purpose, brings nothing else to the squad other than he fits this criteria. So we need to try and look at getting guys like him out and bringing in guys who not only tick the box, but can actually add something to the squad. Obviously, Scott Bain, it now makes you wonder, is that whole 3-year contract that popped up last season, is that purely why they did it? Another box-ticking exercise? He's quite happy to just keep signing contract extensions, and he fits the bill. James Forrest, who's another one that polarises many fans, because he's definitely had his best of days at Celtic, but how many more extensions can he get? How much more sentimentality can he get? You know, it's kind of like we're at a point where James Forrest, it's like, it's kind of, you know, he's reaching the end now. Stephen Welsh, who at times this season, he's done okay when he's played, but he seems to now be the curse of the injured centre-back club. He seems to keep getting injured, which is a bit of a problem. Mikey Johnston, who is probably the most polarising one, who I'd say most fans are just like, I can't believe he's even still getting a game, but we find ourselves in a position where he was, because again, injuries. And one that's probably snuck under the radar today, returning from his loan from Fleetwood Town, Adam Montgomery is now back on Celtic's Lennox Town. So whether that's a case of they're bringing him back because they're sending him somewhere else on loan, because maybe he just wasn't developing the way they wanted him to at Fleetwood, or is there a long-term plan for Adam Montgomery? Who knows? We'll find out in that one.
Any long-term plans?
Aye, I know long-term in Celtic, it doesn't really go hand in hand, does it? But yeah, Russell, that's our current crop. It definitely needs some sort of refresh and some sort of injection of quality. As I say, it can't just be guys like McCarthy who are literally there to tick a box and steal a wage, effectively. No worries. I'll direct it to Liam then if you've got to take that call. So yeah, Liam, that's where we're at the moment with that list. As I say, it can't just be, you know, McCarthy's and Baines and stuff like that. And I say guys like Turnbull look like they're running down the contract. So yeah, we need to look at, not only is there players out there who can fill that quota, is there also players that can add something to the team when they are called upon and when they are used. But yeah, it's not very inspiring right now, is it, that list?
No, I mean, there's one name missing for that list, so that's Rocco Vata.
Well, yeah, that's another one that's...
Understand the urgency, like, to play David Turnbull, knowing that he's not signing a contract. and yet we're not developing Rocco Vata or see what he can do. When he's, because he's not signed a contract. I don't know what he's done to get so far out of the planning. I mean, it must have been like a massive bust up or something for the club to be taking this approach with a player that's still on our books. Seeing it, we still play guys like Johnson and Turnbull and all that. I think we're running into a difficult situation. We've not been very, very proactive about looking at the Scottish League and looking to develop Scottish players. We've sort of had on developing Mikey Johnson, Turnbull, and just sort of going with it, like not trying to improve. I look at Josh Doig the day he's mentioned going to Marseille.
Yep,
that's a good club for him to go to, And so
what position, Liam, does Josh Doig play? What is his position?
He's a left back.
He's a wee maybe screaming out for a left back.
I mean, even if it's, like some of the revisionism in Taylor this week to say the fucking top, I've had guys like posting stats about him, and it's like trying to pick them up as we're getting a new player that, like, Greg Taylor's had a really good patch because he scored that one goal. He's still cost us points. The reason we're in a league race right now is because he couldn't move guys from in front of the net and just stumbled into Joe Hart. I mean, we lost actual points because of this wee clown, and the fact that we're still trying to dress him up as some sort of like Scotland international or superior player. And there's guys like Doig out there. I know I would much rather take a chance on him than taking a chance and going into Taylor with big games. He did well against Rangers. I'll give him that. But he was still targeted, and he was still weak on that left side defensively. It's okay when we're running about with the ball and we've got the possession and all that, and he can do those crazy runs and all that, but nobody's even passing them to me in he runs anymore. So I don't know. I think we need to do a better job of looking at what's in Scotland. And we've no what Scottish players playing outside of Scotland. It just seems like we've miserably in that department.
Yeah, well, you look at Doig, so he's been playing in Italy, one of Europe's top 5 leagues, and he's moving to France, which is also part of Europe's top 5 leagues. Whether France or Italy, which one's better? I don't think either league has been very massively successful in European football, obviously. I know the Italian teams got to all 3 European finals last season, but they all came up short. And Marseille are still the only French team to win the Champions League. No other French teams won the big cup in Europe. But yeah, I mean, he's going to a team with a bit of pedigree by the looks of it, which is funny enough. Just a few days ago, his name was also floating about getting linked to Rangers, which evidently doesn't seem to be going anywhere now. And yeah, apparently now Marseille swooping in. They're talking, I think David Kelly said in the chat list something like 6 million, probably somewhere in that region. I saw 4 million, 5. I've seen a few different things quoted. But again, there've been this boy, so he's went to Italy. He's done not too bad for Hellas Verona, who are like a sort of lower end mid-table team, and he's going to Marseille, who realistically in France are Marseille probably are they going to win Ligue 1? Probably not, with Paris Saint-Germain being the juggernaut they are. But again, you're looking at that, and we've needed a left back like so badly, and it's like, well, there's a boy who's clearly doing pretty well, all things considered. He's playing in a league that is most definitely higher than what we play in. Hellas Verona are probably a lot better than majority of the teams that we play on a week-to-week basis in Scotland. I think he could have been a decent option, but once he goes to a team like that, I think if he's getting big money moves there, I think that's it. The ship has sailed, sadly.
So, Serie A seem to have a better scouting position in Scotland than what Celtic do. They seem to be, especially for left backs. Aaron Hickey went to Bologna.
He did.
It was Bologna went to, or maybe went to somebody else first.
It was Bologna. It was, aye.
They seem to recognise a good left back, and we seem to be on it. We're going to still stick with Greg Taylor or Bolingoli or whoever it is that we're trying to squeeze into the left back position. Well, in fact, we've only got one now because Bernabei's right out the picture. So,
yeah, looks like it.
I think we need to start picking up how we recruit and how we do Scottish players, and take more a chance on these players than guys that we're getting for the second division in Korea and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I'd rather shop in the European market, guys from the sort of top 5 leagues, even if they're from the lower end teams. I say teams like Hellas Verona in Italy, they're a lot better than the teams that we play every week. So to me, a player coming in from that level, who's got big game experience playing against top teams in their country, You know, to me, I think that's better than going out to the outer reaches of world football, essentially, and just taking a chance that this £2 million player might come good. To say at the top of the show there, we're talking about Kwon, who's now been loaned to St Mirren, who at the start of the season was in that category of a punt we have taken on a player from, I said, outer reaches. And the boy himself even said he was coming to Scotland to be the best player in the country, and even talked about his next move after Celtic. Well, I bet he didn't have St Mirren on loan on his bingo card, Liam.
No, I didn't have St Mirren on loan in that, but I don't know. That's an odd one. That's one of these things. I'm looking at a lot of the Twitter and stuff today, and it was like, all right, this is a chance for him to really kick on and that. And I don't know. We've not seen enough of him. I don't see him in training. I've only seen that one played against Real Betis. And
Athletic Bilbao, the James Forrest testimonial. Yep.
And he came on and he played in that, and he looked physical, you know. But I don't know. I didn't have enough to see him to actually form any sort of opinion on him. But you know, Nuno will get a chance. His first game is against Rangers, so all right. I want to see that physicalness again because he looked dangerous out there. So maybe he'll go out there and he'll just snap a few players and all that and become a Celtic folk hero when he comes back here. You know.
Well, Liam, as you are our resident man in Canada, Canadian football expert, you are the wise man. StuTube has brought out this one, and it's a name you've mentioned before. Ryan Gauld is just about to sign a contract in Canada for $50,000 a week. Any young player coming through in Scotland sees that, they'll be Offski. But that's another guy where it's like he promised so much, but again, he would count as a homegrown player. And would he be able to come to Celtic and do, you know, the business? But if he's about to sign a contract of that size, what does that mean for his next move after that? Is he going to be looking for wages in that bracket again? Who knows?
There's no way he's getting 50 grand a week in MLS. That's messy money. You know, I don't know. I mean, I remember seeing when they first started here, or not first started, but when they came back again as the Whitecaps and the MLS and that, I remember seeing their wage bracket and what Kenny Miller and Barry Robson and all that was getting. But they still had players on the books that were first-team players that were getting around 50,000 Canadian a year, no week, you know. And so, yeah, I don't know. He was a good player for Vancouver. I don't really follow the Whitecaps anymore. It just does my head in. It's brutal football to watch. But Ryan Gauld, he's really came alive this year, and you know all the buzz about him and all that. He's our top player, you know, so to speak. And I always thought there might be a chance because you know there is a connection between Vancouver and Celtic, you know, with Robson and Miller and stuff like that coming, and that maybe that would be an opportunity. And I was thinking, okay, well, if you're going to take a gamble and we're looking at somebody come in and look for a playmaker on that side to fill where Bernardo is slotted in, Ryan Gauld would be a good player. I've watched the highlights of him, and a lot of the balls that he's very, very creative in that side of the park, you know. But again, small and that. But I don't know. MLS is a pretty physical league, so he probably had his own in Scotland. But you know, I remember him being the next Messi or the hype when he was at Dundee.
That's right. So he was,
Benfica or Sporting Lisbon, one of the two.
Yep.
And never really kicked on there. And then when he showed up in Vancouver, you know, it didn't even make a big deal about it, you know, because, you know, Barry Robson was an absolute bust here. You know,
Barry Robson, cult hero. But just for now you're back, Russell, I've got a list now, basically. I've had a wee deep dive, essentially, into talent that's out there that is Scottish. So I thought, where a better place to look than also over the course of the last 12 months, the Scotland national team has had a purple patch essentially, so they must be doing something right. So I've taken a look at all of the squads that Stevie Clarke has picked over that qualifying campaign there, which obviously they've qualified automatically, and thought, right, let's have a wee breakdown here of what's in that squad, what is attainable, what would count as homegrown, is there anything in there? Because I say if the national team are doing pretty well by their standards, there must be something there other than just Shankland and McKenna, which is only two names. So obviously going by the definition that I put there at the top of what counts as a homegrown player. So right away, names that you can put a line through because they wouldn't count as homegrown would also be Angus Gunn of Norwich City, albeit I think he would be a good signing for us, but he wouldn't tick the homegrown box. But I think he would be a great choice at goalkeeper for us. Lyndon Dykes of QPR, obviously he wouldn't count. He's Australian, I believe, originally born in Australia. Che Adams wouldn't count, obviously not homegrown. Liam Cooper of Leeds United wouldn't count. Dominic Hyam of Blackburn Rovers, who got capped during that campaign, he wouldn't count. Grant Hanley wouldn't even count because he never actually played in Scotland. He's Scottish born and bred, but he spent all of his career in England, so he was trained in under the English FA banner essentially, so he wouldn't count as a homegrown player. Elliot Anderson, who's a Newcastle player, is English born, but obviously qualifies for Scotland. And Jacob Brown of Luton, again, same category as Anderson there. But say in that list, though, if there was a player, though, that I could pick out and say I would like us to try and make a move for him, and obviously it's a position, Russell, that we need to address. I said at the top there, Angus Gunn, I think, is a standout goalkeeper. Whether he's attainable, because I don't know where Norwich are right now in the Championship, if the chance of promotion is there. Because I imagine if Norwich went up, I think he'd be quite happy to say, no, I'm going to stay down here. But that, to me, looks like a good progressive signing. He's at a good age, because he's still in his 20s. And so he's currently now the national team goalkeeper, following on from Craig Gordon, who's obviously the wrong side of 40 these days and just come back for a leg break. But yeah, I think that would be a good one if he was attainable, but whether he is, who knows. But any other ones on that list, Russell, that stood out, as you'd say? I'd still like us to try and maybe grab them if we could, like Che Adams maybe. I know David Logue has pushed Che Adams' name a few times. Oh, you muted yourself there, Russell. And he's not. There we go.
Can you hear me? I don't know how that happened. I mean, I think the Angus Gunn one's a very interesting prospect because we need a long-term goalkeeper. Of that, there's no doubt. And we've had first sort of up close looks at him because of his recently featured in the international team. I don't know, man. I don't think that's all that bad. Che Adams for me, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, he would really need to have the appetite for it as well. And that's the thing. You can't just come up here thinking it'll be an easy payday. And, you would really need to have a motivated, I think, Che Adams to join. Albeit, you could say when he's played for Scotland, that would have maybe been your fear when he was first called up, if you like. How motivated is he going to be? And I would have said his commitment's been pretty much all there. And he's played in the Scotland jersey. You've not really had to critique that. And to be honest, that was a concern I had when we were targeting players like Che Adams. I thought, they might just want to be doing it so they can say they've played at Euros or there's international football. How up for it they're going to be? Yeah, I've always got a good vibe about him. Celtic quality. Yeah, I mean, see, compared with the other signings we've made, I mean, is this the road that we want to go down? I really don't want to go down the road of comparing with the most recent 1920 signings. But he'd be up there in the top two, if not the top one of that list. Do you know what I mean? So... based on that, he would definitely add something. In general, is he the type of player I'd always be looking for Celtic? I don't know. I think my opinion's been swayed by the level of player that we brought in of late. Well,
that's true. Actually, we're getting the conditions now. I feel that's my worry. But with Che Adams, I remember when David Logue suggested it at the time, my feeling on it was, well, he's been playing for Southampton, who at the time were obviously down the bottom end of the Premier League for pretty much every season he's been there. Now they've been relegated to the Championship. So most games they're spending, defending behind the ball, and he's having to rely on scraps. For the Scotland national team, that's how Stevie Clarke likes to set the team out. It's all about making it difficult to beat and just relying on any scraps that fall their way up front to hit them on the counter. So I thought, put him in a Celtic team. We have a lot of the ball. We make a lot more chances. Would he benefit from that? Possibly, but people are obviously pointing out in the chat as well, because it's a bit of a conflicted. I've seen some names saying they would take Adams and some that are saying no chance, because again, it's all about money. He's just been in the Premier League for multiple years. Southampton, despite being relegated, they're still going to be paying a hefty amount to some of their players. Whether he's willing to take a sort of pay cut for that and we could get him for a decent price, who knows? But again, I'm just going through the squads that Stevie Clarke's picked in the last year. So that's under the category of they wouldn't count as homegrown, so they ones wouldn't tick that box. But see, Angus Gunn, I think, is definitely the standout there if he was attainable. So then we've got the ones that are out of our price range effectively, and sadly they all turned out to be Scotland's best players: John McGinn, Andy Robertson, Kieran Tierney, who, Russell, we were so convinced that Kieran Tierney was going to be. We were so naive, we were so foolish. Did Brendan Rodgers ask the question? We thought maybe he did, but did the board ask any questions? Probably not. Aaron Hickey, I would probably put in the category of, he's probably out of our price range now, and that's another one that we definitely let slip. I guess David Kelly saying in the chat earlier, that was one we let slip through the net. Scott McTominay was another one that we thought that's going to be attainable. But yeah, as we found out very quickly in the summer when West Ham bidded, what was it? But they wanted Man United wanted 30 million off of West Ham for him, and it was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. I think it was a couple of years ago before McTominay seemed to hit this purple patch, then maybe on some sort of loan. But yeah, this is the guy who's just hit massive form. He's been getting games for Man United now as well, which just adds to his value, even though Man U have been dog meat for a while now, to be fair. They're a bit of a joke of a club at the moment. And of course, the last one in our price range is Billy Gilmore, because he's now transferred to Brighton full-time, I believe. But again, it would be like, yeah, it's as good as he seems to be at times. It looks like he's another one that's out of our price range. And then the next category I've got, which again are guys that there's no point in even asking, or no, they would want them anyway, because they've got a Rangers connection. Either they are currently Rangers players, they have a youth career at Rangers, they are a well-known Rangers fan, or have some sort of other connection. So obviously Ryan Jack, John Souttar, Robbie McCrory, Ross McCrory, Nathan Patterson, Kenny McLean, and Liam Kelly. But there is one guy on there whose name has been linked to us, Liam, in the last 2 years, I would say. And a lot of Celtic fans turned their nose up at it, whether it's because of his family connections or whatnot. But Lewis Ferguson, we were just talking about Josh Doig, who went away to Italy. Because obviously Ferguson hasn't played for Rangers, but we do know obviously his family ties to the club and whatnot. What do you think of Ferguson? Because now when I look at what he's done, I'm starting to think that maybe we should have, because he was linked to us about the same time. After the John McGinn stuff didn't go away, his name began coming up. But again, a lot of fans are like, no, definitely not to Ferguson. Obviously because of, and also there is an element of, well, we've only seen him play for Aberdeen. We can't really just, judge it on that. But look at that. You said that obviously, Liam, at the top show about Italy's scouting. They've got no problem with picking up players for Scotland. And there was stories earlier on about him being like to Juventus, which is a huge step up in Italy. He's going to the top team, essentially, from Bologna. But Lewis Ferguson...
Bologna's captain often as well.
So do you think is there still a chance that we could, if we made a move, do you think we could, is he a guy that should be a person of interest?
I wanted us to sign him earlier. I thought, that would be a great signing for us, because you know what? Signing somebody that's got a grudge against them, that supported them, that wants to come out and show everybody and show them that they made a big mistake. Well, it could be another Kenny Dalglish. I mean, this is a guy that just overtook Dennis Law as the biggest Scottish scorer in Italy. That was I think that was in December. I think Lewis Ferguson's a good player. I think he did play for Rangers, though. I think he actually did play for a couple of games for them. I think, why not take him? I listened to his dad on Open Go, and he was saying that I definitely love him to play for Celtic and that as well. It'd be a good move for him and all that. So, I kind of listen, I don't mind Derek Ferguson on Open Go, and I know the uncle's, bad as well, but they grew up Rangers fans, but they're football guys as well. And I think they'd just be proud is simply on Rangers, and I don't know if it's that bitter, but who knows.
Well, speaking about one of the names I did mention there, obviously Billy Gilmore. We know about his family with his dad at Celtic, but as we've seen when he signed for Norwich, his mother wouldn't even touch the green part of the scarf on the Norwich, when she was holding up the Norwich scarf. So,
wow.
Conflicting ones there, but yeah.
Remember the hype when Scott Brown signed, or that he was Rangers diehard? There was photos of him as a child or whatever it was in a Rangers top. There was obviously the wide of the mark rumour that he had a Rangers tattoo in his leg. Remember that was going about at the time when he joined. But you find Paul Lambert, I think, was a Rangers fan. Dalglish was a Rangers fan. These things don't carry much weight for me. I mean, I remember us signing Kenny Miller once he was in the hoops. I didn't care that he'd scored goals for Rangers in the same league under Advocat and stuff like that. And then Stephen Presley as well. He played for Rangers. He joined. Nobody cares, mate. Do you know what I mean about stuff like that? You just want the best players possible. In a Celtic chat, I remember having many chats with Tony Haggerty over on the Wee Fellas platform about Lewis Ferguson, and we were absolutely unanimous that would have been a good move at the time. And that was when you were talking £3 million for Aberdeen. And the amount of people in the live chat then that were watching had this real snobbery to, we've got to be aspiring for more. And yet the same people will be right now saying, good luck to Quan, still think there's a player there. And you go, oh, just shut up. Do you know what I mean? Like, you obviously don't know anything. But I think it's very, very snobby sort of attitudes towards our game, where actually, when you look at it, the most successful sort of European campaigns we've had have always had, post 2000, they've always had either players from the league or a Scottish core to them. You know what I mean? I think like that's something that maybe has been lacking over the last 5, 6, 7 years. When we go into Europe, we've not had, ironically, that Scottish core there to actually sometimes just help. Some players that just go, I know we're up against it today. So it's going to be how many yards we run, how hard we work. And there's not been, in times in European football, we've tried to out-football the other team. And I mean, as for the Lewis Ferguson one, I mean, Steve O'Matt's saying there it's less to do with snobbery. I mean, I disagree, Steve. That's the point. I'm talking about reading it in the live chat, mate. Like, it was very much, we can't be buying players from Aberdeen. That was the case. It was very much, that was why I said it. It was very much about SPFL snobbery, mate. And the family gene line will definitely irk some, and I get all that. But that's the lowest sort of form of intelligence when it comes to judging a good player. And those opinions, I think you can put to one side, and certainly shouldn't be influencing Celtic. But I do think from the supporters base to the club of late, because you look at the lack of signings we've made from within the SPL, or the SPFL as it's known, there's been none, absolutely none. So, I think Segrist was the last one, came in to be the number 2 goalkeeper.
Now he's the number 3 goalkeeper. What a way!
Yeah. and yet we used to always have, whether it was Robson and Hartley, players like that can flick. And by the way, help get us over the line to win the 07-08 title. Make no mistake about it. 100%. Made impacts in Europe as well. Yep. Scott McDonald scored against Milan, against Man United. Yep. The same people that would say Lauren Shankland couldn't do that right now. Well, Scott McDonald, to be honest, I was probably on the fence back then. He couldn't do it either, but there is proof in the pudding that these guys can raise their game once they join us. So, to me, I do find it frustrating that there has been no sort of when we've seen the amount of players, as Liam's talking about, go to Italy that are being scouted without fear, without any sort of prejudgment from these Italian clubs, and going, we think the guy can play. We're gonna invest in him, and we're gonna give him an opportunity. Yep. And you're looking at the impact they're having. It's absolutely outstanding. Now, when you look at the fees for Aaron Hickey, not a lot of money. Not a lot of money. I think he went to Bologna as well, am I right?
Yep. Well, Marcus's comment there is exactly what you're going, because Celtic couldn't afford those picks, and that's correct. Right now, we can't afford them.
Yeah, we can't get them now.
But the point that Russ was obviously making is a few years ago when his name did come up, we were, we're not paying $3 million for Aberdeen, but Bologna weren't afraid to do it, and now they're going to probably reap the benefits by selling him on for a profit. And say one of the teams that's been like them in the last couple of months is Juventus, who are like the top team in Italy and have been for many, many years. So it's like these teams aren't afraid to do it. So we've obviously hesitated and missed the, pardon the use, lack of a better term, missed the bus on that one. But yeah, it looks like he's probably out of our range now because of that. And and so there's still quite a polarising opinion though on him. I've been keeping my eye on the chat going up, and again, some people are like yes, some people, so it's very, very mixed in terms of that one. But then that takes me on to the next category, which I can tell, but I know what the reaction will be to this one as soon as I tell you the names.
The dog is just stolen and is getting very animated.
Oh, there you go.
That's my Celtic socks. Celtic gloves gone. Cheers. I've not even had the chance to wear them yet.
Oh God, that's ruined. That's at the dogs now. Yeah,
if you could see her body, that's the highest she's jumped in a long time. Trust me, she is a big lab. Sorry about that.
I just once the dogs claimed it, you can just have it. You can just have it. I don't want to wear them anyway. But the next category I've got from looking at who was in these Scotland squads is had their time at Celtic and would be seen as a step back. There's only 3 players that fall into that category, and I know what the reaction will be to the very first name. Ryan Christie, Stuart Armstrong, and Jack Henry. Liam, do any of the three tickle your pickle about a return to Celtic? Because I feel like Armstrong, he's never really became the player that I thought he could be down at Southampton. Jack Henry, I don't know what the hell, how this has happened, but again, the Saudi League have just shown that in some cases they're just signing anybody. So I don't think we should just equate to the fact he's now earning a pretty penny out in Saudi Arabia, the fact that he's now a top defender and we missed the boat there. Because I do remember being at Firhill for that infamous game where he basically skinned himself. He came forward with the ball, realised there was nothing on, and basically pirouetted again, and did it again to the point where he just lost the ball. He didn't know what to do. So I remember all these things with Jack Henry, but again, there's all different strokes for different folks. Some fans do think that he has improved as a player. And of course, Ryan Christie, I know what that name does for Russell here. Whenever Ryan Christie's name comes up. Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
I think it'd be unfair on Ryan Christie as well. I mean, you'll remember he'll have plenty of battle scars from that last season with Celtic as well, when he got absolutely ripped by the vast majority of the fan base. I think that marriage is divorced and will never, ever be getting back together. Definitely not.
I think a lot of old man chipping in all the time as well. His old man was very vocal, what a great player he was. And all we seen was him trying to fucking launch satellites into orbit, shoot on sight. Christie, he should have been shot in sight. But a couple of Christie, I don't know. I didn't think much when we got him. Who were the other two names you mentioned there, Phil?
Jack Henry. Quinny's saying he's the Scottish John Stones.
I thought he played, I watched him a couple of times when he was playing in Europe with, I can't remember who it was.
Club Bruges, wasn't it? It was a Club Bruges he was at. Aye.
Looked okay. I saw a couple of times in Scotland where he looked half decent. And anytime I've seen him with us, he looked like an absolute bomb scare. I mean, the other two that we signed for Scotland as well, around about that time, Johnny Hayes. Johnny Hayes was no bad signing.
Under Neil Lennon, he came into his own. I feel he was one of Lenny's boys. Definitely, he loved him.
Who was that?
Johnny Hayes. I know he was a homegrown player, but he was a player who signed from a Scottish team. When he became a left back, he was excellent. He was really good.
Phil, the other one that came in that had a lot of fanfare around him when he came in was Lewis Morgan. Lewis Morgan tearing it up there. And when he got to us, my God, what a disappointment that boy was. I mean, just never, ever. There was never a game that he could take control or show any sort of value in what we were promised at that point. And going back to what we're saying later, like signing guys for Rangers fans and Rangers academies. I think most of the guys that we've signed that have either come through Rangers Academy or Rangers fans and all that, when their career finished, they became Celtic fans. You look at Stephen Presley and Paul Lambert and people like that. That was them. They were Celtic fans now. The only one that immediately turned back was Lewis Morgan.
Well, yeah, he did make a comment, I'm pretty sure, on some interview he did out in America. Yeah, that's right.
He was on ESPN, was doing Celtic Rangers game, and they interviewed Lewis Morgan. He was, I'm cheering Rangers, and and even though he used to played for Celtic and that, and you don't get too many like that. But then again, he came in and did absolute fuck all with his chance to play with us and show himself what he was going to be like with a big team. So of course he's probably a wee bit bitter. He probably wants to.
Do you think he was signed because do you remember Brendan's first season? And I think we played St Mirren and we were steamrolling everyone, and they were in the first division at the time.
Yeah, played
Lewis Morgan being a part of that team. And remember Brendan was saying they're the best team I've faced domestically. I think we'd played Rangers twice by then.
Was that the same St Mirren team that was managed by future Celtic manager to some
Jack Ross?
Oh, that one? Yeah.
Aye.
Scottish Cup game, I remember that one. Yeah.
Well, but I just wonder if Lewis Morgan played in that game, and that was where the idea came from to sign him.
Possibly the timescales are a bit right.
Aye. I wonder. Quinny. He says sign Johnny Russell as a third striker.
Johnny Russell, he's still in the MLS, isn't he? He's at Sporting Kansas City or something. He's been there for years, man. Absolutely years. So I hope the two of you have got some a strong beverage to get you through this last part here, because obviously now I've filtered through everything else in Stevie Clarke's Scotland teams for the last 12 months. And that leaves me with the rest. This is where Lauren Shankland and Scott McKenna are in, the guys who don't fall into any of those categories. But this is basically players that have been in the Scotland national team in the last 12 months during that successful campaign. So Shankland, McKenna, Kevin Nisbet, he's kind of fell off the face of the earth. Like, he went down to Millwall and you don't hear anything about him now.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. Kevin Nisbet. Ryan Porteous, he's also in about the Scotland team. He's down at Watford now.
Watford.
Yeah.
Yep.
Xander Clark, the Hearts goalkeeper, who's obviously playing as a number one just now, while Craig Gordon's still coming back for his injury, but he's now like Scotland's sort of number two keeper behind Gunn. And a boy named Max Johnson, who was at Motherwell, now plays in the Austrian Bundesliga for Sturm Graz. And of course, a guy we were talking about, Russell, while you were away, quite topical tonight, Josh Doig. So I was saying to Liam, we've been screaming out for a left back. And there's a left back that's about to move from the Italian league to the French league. He's going to go to Marseille, apparently, as of tonight. And it's like, Jesus, man, when he was at Hibs, he was a name that came up as a person of interest, I think, as well. But yeah, that's basically the rest, essentially. Shankland, Nisbet, Doig, Porteous, McKenna, Clark, and Johnston, out of all the Scotland teams that we picked in the last 12 months. So when you actually look at it that way, you're like, no wonder Shankland and McKenna's name keep coming up, because that is pretty much the pool that they've got to pick from at the moment if they're looking in that area. So it's like, whoa. But I say, Doig, Russell, what do you think? Like, we might have missed the boat here if he does make that move.
It's just back to what I was saying about Lewis Ferguson. There was a snobbery and an attitude towards other SPFL players that they would never be Celtic class. It's something we've done. Yeah, the opposite of that throughout our history is buy the better players from rival clubs within our league. And that's not meaning you need to go Gordon Strachan at Middlesbrough vibes and make a super 11 out of it all. Do you know what I mean? That's going to flop miserably. But I think you cherry pick one or two, and Josh Doig was there to be cherry picked. Do you know what I mean? I don't understand that.
I see. It's tonight. I see he's now linked. Well, funny enough, a few days ago he was linked with a move to the other side of Glasgow, but it now seems tonight that Marseille have swooped in, and it's going to be about 4 to 6 million. I think is going to be the price range. But yeah, I mean, moving from the Italian leagues in the top 5 leagues in Europe, and he's going to move to another top 5 league in Europe essentially. So fair play to the lad. But yeah, when we're screaming out for a left back, then yeah. That could be one that got away. But yeah, so when you look at what's going on there with what's left over, yeah, Kevin Nisbet, see, that was a strange one. Again, he was a bit like Shankland, Liam, where he was a name that came up plenty of times last season in the chat. I remember Monty, one of our very long-time viewers, a great guy who obviously we've met in person as well, Russell, but Monty was always championing Kevin Nisbet, but say he's kind of fell off the face of the earth. You don't hear about him too much. I mean, maybe he's injured. I mean, I don't obviously follow the English Championship too closely or Millwall, but yeah, you don't see, like, if you're watching Soccer Saturday, Kevin Nisbet's name popping up as a goal scorer. Yeah, and it's like, what happened there? Because that was another one again last season. I would have had him over Shankland if I had the choice between the two. Now they were talking about Majowski and Shankland, and it's like, oh, if you take me back to a year ago and I had the choice between the two, I would have went for Nisbet as well. But yeah, he would tick the box.
Is this all part of the master plan, Phil? Oh. Is this where we go? See, we could have dove in. We could have paid $2.5 million for him last January. Now, though, we waited a year till he doesn't get a game at Millwall. Is has a crisis of confidence, but we get him for $1 million. Hey,
play the long game.
Play the long game and get a player that's confidence is shot. Brilliant move.
Oh, Celtic board, love it. They're all over that.
By the way, would you put that past being a player that we're linked with this window? Not at all.
Not at all. I wouldn't at all. But yeah, Liam, in terms of Nisbet, say, bit of a strange one, that, isn't it? How he's just kind of not really hit the ground at all down there.
I know, you see a lot of players go down there and don't do well. Like, look at Lee Griffiths. Lee Griffiths went down there and didn't really do that well, but came back to Scotland, tore it up. I think some it's just like playing in Scotland. You know, it's a different game. You can be a bit more physical, I think, a bit more robust. You know, imagine, I don't know, I think you would have probably done okay at Celtic, you know. But fuck, it's not speculation. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
It's a weird one as well. Did he not have quite a bad injury before he's moved to Millwall? He was out for a considerable period of time as well. And sometimes players don't come back the same, eh?
Maybe it is something like that. Because was he not meant to move last January? And it basically either opted to stay at Hibs or it got cancelled for maybe he had an injury. I'm pretty sure there was a talk that he was moving and he ended up moving in the summer. But yeah, it's not a name that you see coming up doing much down there. But yeah, he has been in and around Scotland squads in the last 12 months. But yeah, once I finally filtered through everything, I was like, wow, if you're looking at guys in the national team, our options are actually quite limited. Scotland have also had a purple patch, but it's down to the guys who are playing well are the real top players that are just not attainable for us anymore. Guys like McGinn, McTominay and all that, these are the reasons. And yeah, say when you actually look through the rest of it, it's no wonder Shankland and McKenna's names were the ones that were coming up the most often recently.
What do you think of McKenna and Shankland as potential? See if those two signed in the window. I think there'd be a feeling of underwhelmment across the board. I don't know if underwhelment's a word, but I'm using it anyway. Yeah. I wonder if there'd be I think it would be very tricky for them to get up to a level that was seen as acceptable. Yeah, because I think they'd be getting judged from a different prism rather than just an open playbook. I don't think they would have the comforts that a Thiago Holm would have. Whereas if he plays 3 passes, it's I've seen real quality there, mate. I think they would have to do a hell of a lot more than that. I think Shankland will need to get double figures between now and the end of the season if we were to join in January. At least, not at least. Obviously, it's not going to be more than double figures, Russell. But you know what I mean? He would need to get over 10 goals anyway, I think, to even try and sort of meet expectation. As for Scott McKenna, we need to keep a clean sheet every week, I think, with him at the back to convince people. I'm not saying these are signings that I'm advocating or signings that I'm desperate for Celtic to make, but I would have the open-mindedness, if they did join, to give them a fair crack of the whip. The same way we have for a hell of a lot of players that we've got no idea what they can do. No idea what they can do. And I don't like that vibe where players are just dismissed completely. And the one thing I would say about those two is, based on what I was talking about earlier, with the lack of signings we've made of these type of players, albeit I accept McKenna's not playing in Scotland right now. But if there has been a snobbery towards these players, then that would mean there's been a shift in attitude. And that shift in attitude would mean probably the managers said, no, I want them. And that would be quite refreshing, I think, as well, if it weren't these same numpties that were picking players out of that. That's what gives me the biggest fear. That's what would put me off those two players the most. If I found out that it was Mark Lawwell who'd spotted them, I'd go, oh, fucking hell, everyone else is right, they are shite. Do you know what I mean? You would be hoping, though, if those signings were made, if they were, for argument's sake, that would mean it would be different. And Quinny, again, by the way, just seen it at the bottom there, you see it with Scales. It's like folk act like he's subpar, but he's came in and done a job where he's probably took him years to get that opportunity. And let's be honest, it was by a hell of a lot of luck. But here's the player we would have always said, not good enough. And whether he's going to take Celtic to the next level or not, it's one argument, but he's done a bloody good job this season, has he not?
Yeah, I think a few of us said on the bus, if we'd signed a guy from Italy or something with a nice fancy name and he was putting in the sort of shifts that Liam Scales was doing, and we signed him for, say, 2-3 million quid, we'd go, oh, that's one of those projects that's worked too. That's quite a good one. Oh, we'll sell him on for a profit. He's put in right saying, is he the things we take to the next level? Maybe not, but he's serviceable. Obviously, we do need to try and find the next level, but that is the hard bit. That really is. And with McKenna and Shankland, if they signed, I would be okay with it. I wouldn't be jumping for joy with it, but I wouldn't be totally critical on them. I want to see. I try and judge them once I've seen them play a few times, and then I get an idea. I don't make my mind up on a player as soon as they're either linked with us or they've just signed. I want to see them how they would do. I mean, you're talking about McKenna would have to keep a clean sheet from every game at the end of the season. A name that I mentioned earlier on, obviously I brought up Jack Henry, right? I remember when we signed Jack Henry, and it was Brendan's second season where many fans will start to argue that that's when the football started to skew a little bit under Brendan, because the first season was amazing, and a few fans have got an opinion that somewhere in the middle of the second season, a bit like when Ange was in charge, midway through the second season, the football started to decline a little bit. I can remember we drew 0-0 with one of the bottom end teams at home that night. I want to say it was Dundee, right? I can remember we drew 0-0, and fans all over social media were blaming Jack Henry for it. I'm like, Jack Henry's a centre-back, and technically he did his job because we kept the clean sheet. He's not the reason we drew 0-0, but that's the type of stuff that players like that level and that standard up against in fans, especially in the social media day and age, where fans will just look to vent and just blame him, even though by all accounts he's not done anything wrong. And I think McKenna would be in the exact same position. Even if he was keeping clean sheets, say we do draw 0-0, somehow it would be Scott McKenna's fault to some fans, because as the quality of player was saying, it's like he's a defender. He's not the one that's meant to win us the game by scoring goals. So I think they would be up against stuff like that, where some fans would just have it in for them and wouldn't change their opinion. It just seems to be there's a lot of fans that are stubborn, essentially. What do you say, Liam? Do you feel like they would just be fighting an uphill battle constantly? They would have to, as Russell said, perform miracles from now to the end of the season for fans to go, are they well worth the investment?
It's funny. It seems to be a Scottish mentality thing that, anything for Scotland is subpar. And I'm saying this as somebody that's not lived there in decades. You just see it from the outside. Look at somebody like Paul Lambert. Paul Lambert was with Motherwell and was offered to every club in Scotland, and ended up Dortmund chance on him, and he ended up playing everybody off the park in a European final before coming back to Celtic as a superstar. The first, I think, is he the only or the first Champions League?
He was the first Scottish player to win the Champions League in the new format, Champions League format. Yep.
So, I think we have, and then you listen to, because I've been stuck here for ages, right? So, I listen to, before podcasts and all that, you listen to Super Scoreboard and that, because that's your only attachment to Scotland sometimes. And guys like Hugh Keevins and all that, like the way the Scottish game is run down, and he has to go to England because that's about money and that's where the competition is and all that. And well, it's fucking bullshit, man. It's like there we had a player like Paul Lambert sitting in our league. So it comes to us to be a bit brave and recognise, but we don't get in early and get these players. I think all our project players should be Scottish. Like investing guys for, we're still looking at, Benfica B players now. And yet there's a lot of boys in Scotland that are already settled, already know the game. And the idea is you transition them through fast. You don't stick with them for fucking ages like a Mikey Johnson or stuff like that. You get them in early, you see what they're good, and if they don't go, they go and they play in another Scottish team. You see loads and loads of our youth teams playing in Scotland. Guys like Michael Garden and all that. Guys that ended up creating a half-decent career in Scotland.
Sure.
But
Liam, the thing is as well, pal, see the names we've just spoke about as well. They've all played like 100 SPFL games before they've made these moves. So these aren't even guys that are like, in the sense of project, these are guys that have played. I know what you mean by project, obviously, but they're actually almost like a project that's halfway through when you're getting them, not just for scratch, which feels like a lot of them once they move continent or move to Scotland in general, it feels like they're back to square one in terms of their development again, and we need to nurture them right through from phase one right through to the finished article. Whereas these guys that have played in Scotland that we've been quoting tonight, they've played over 100 games already in the same league we compete in. I think that's half the battle too, pal.
I remember ages ago we were talking, maybe 2 years ago, we were talking about potential centre-backs when we were absolutely struggling. And I was saying, there's Mark O'Hara playing with St Mirren. I thought he was a really good player. Now he's a captain. I know he's a bit injury-prone now, but that was a player that we should have brought in and tried to develop, rather than going with all these foreigners like Kobayashi and stuff like that. That was a player playing in Scotland that actually can play against teams. And by the way, when he played against us twice, he absolutely dominated our forward line. They couldn't get anything off him.
Scored in the game when they beat us last season in Paisley. He scored, didn't he?
Aye, so I think there's definitely players out there. So I think we just have to just sort of realign our perspective of how we see Scottish players, but look at them at maybe 1-2 season projects, and if they don't work, we sell them away to another Scottish team, because who are we going to sell Kwon to or Yang to or anything like that? They're going to go back to Korea. We're going to pay for them,
I think as well, you look at the level that these guys are coming from that are getting the benefit of the doubt, and it's like the K-League, the J-League, the Norwegian League. A lot of these leagues are, nowhere near as good as the level as the SPFL, and yet we're instantly sort of honed into, even the guy we're signing, Nicolas Kuhn, the Austrian League, that's not as high as the Scottish one in the coefficient or anything like that, yet we're buzzing over his numbers in a league that's literally, factually inferior to ours. Yeah, we wouldn't be as buzzing if it was a player with those numbers from our league. Makes sense of that. It is strange, and that's not us saying, by the way, every single player that does a half-decent impact in the SPFL needs to be players we've signed. But there's a body of evidence now, the ones who have let slip through the net are doing it at a higher standard than the SPFL, such as the Italian league. That then leads you to think if they came to Celtic, they would perform better than they had prior in the SPFL because they're playing for a better team. And also, if they can cut it in Serie A, for example, they'd be able to cut it in Europe for us as well. Rest my case.
Yeah, well, Condor's comment at the bottom saying McKenna and Shankland wouldn't get us results against the Real Madrids of the world, but might help us against teams like Copenhagen. And that's the thing for Celtic right now. The sad state of affairs for Celtic in Europe is we need to go back to basics, and it's baby steps first. Instead of talking about like that group there, dreaming of results against Atletico Madrid, who are obviously the real, the top team who scudded at 6-0. It's the teams like the Feyenoords, that we had to, that was the first game, obviously, Feyenoord away. It was the one that many fans felt like, well, that's a team we should be competing with. By the time we did beat them in the last game, it was a dead rubber. We've looked over the last few years, Bodo Glimt beating us. Copenhagen, who I mentioned there, they beat us in the Europa League tie second round a few years ago under Neil Lennon. And obviously, like Copenhagen, you look at this season, what they did in the Champions League. A lot of people are looking at, using the Man United thing as some sort of justification for why Celtic struggled. Man U finished bottom of their group, so it's not that bad for Celtic. No, the bigger story is that Copenhagen and Galatasaray, teams with significantly lower budgets than Man United, and probably Copenhagen have a comparable budget to us, finished ahead of them. That's what we should be looking at and going, well, that's the story right there. So, yeah, they're the type of teams that we should be looking to compete with and obviously, try and emulate what they're doing. They're doing something right, Russell. But right now, we are not. And now we're heading into a sad reality where we said at the start of the season, we talked about Celtic's abysmal record in knockout competition in Europe over the last 20 years. It's now 21 years because no European football. Next season, the Champions League with the new format, there's no drop-downs anymore. So if Celtic win the league and are in the Champions League, we're effectively in just that competition. We have to finish in the top 24 out of the 36 teams to move on to the next round. So you're also in the harder competition. So realistically, can Celtic actually break that hoodoo in the new format? It's looking, when I now think about it, I'm kind of gutted that they're taking away the group stages with the drop downs, because that for me was a realistic chance to drop down to Europa League. There might be something we can do there. But I think in this new competition, we're destined to go many, many more years as it stands right now.
But time's told us though, Phil, that I take your point. I do know where you're coming from, but the years that have just passed since then have told us we don't make a dent in that drop-down format. No. We are as well getting the extra 2 games. I'm not saying that to be all doom and gloom, but when have we made any sort of inroads in it? The fact is we've not won a knockout game for 20 years, and there's been many an occasion where we've not even qualified for the Champions League, so we've started in the Europa League, struggled to get out of groups, been beaten off Diddy teams left, right and centre, can't win a knockout game, as I say. So with all that in mind, maybe just getting the extra 2 games of the Champions League, bringing in the pennies and hoping for some reason that someone comes in with a forward-thinking, progressive plan, a bit of creativity, as Liam always likes to say, which I totally am on board with, and looks at all the revenue we've got and goes, I could make a go of this with Celtic. I've got an idea what we could do with this pile of cash. That'd be nice. But in the meantime, I don't think it's as big a loss as you make out. Sadly, not that it should be the way, but it is the way, because it's 20 years of proving that.
Yeah, and especially with what we've seen happen across the other side of the city in recent years, where they were able to get through to a final. And again, a lot of fans, me included, are like, well, if we've been the better team over the last couple of years, how come we can't do that? But say with us in Europe right now, it's definitely baby steps, and we have to go back to basics and try and figure out how to beat the teams just a little bit above us or around us before we start dreaming again about beating Real Madrids of the world and AC Milans and whatnot. But yeah, that's another story for another time. But yeah, so tonight I thought we would take a wee bit of a different slant on it, because there is no game preview.
Enjoyed that, mate. Very well put together.
We'll have a wee look through, and of course the conclusion that we've kind of drawn from the end of it is there isn't really much. It says Shankland and McKenna. You can now kind of understand why they're the 2 names that keep coming up, because when you look at the rest that's left from those Scotland squads over the last year, we ain't got much to choose from. So maybe Shankland and McKenna will continue to float around names linked with us for the next few weeks. Will they actually be signed? Who knows? We just all we can do is just keep on doing shows and keep guessing what the next move at the Celtic board will be. I suppose quickly before we go, it does look like obviously Nicolas Kuhn is signing. The narrative or the sort of underlying story here, Liam, I think Mark highlighted it as, and again, I don't blame him for thinking this way. There's obviously some murmurs going around, some naughty newspaper reports, obviously, about Abada's mindset. People claiming that, he's been told this and told that. Are they basically greasing us up, essentially, Liam, for Abada to be sold and this is his replacement? Or is Kuhn coming in to add to our numbers in the wing? What do you think's going on there, Liam?
I think it's all speculation. I think it's that guy McGowan right now is trying to just create problems for us. I think Lyle Abada is a professional football player. Politics in football, we're told it doesn't mix. Whether he's seeing Palestinian flags of it. Players played at Ibrox for Ireland. I've seen Red Hand Ulsters and Union Jacks and all that there. They weren't looking for transfer requests. I don't know. I don't think there's many places you can go to where Israel's going to be like a favoured,
that's another good point. Yeah.
The world perspective is changing against them, and so, all right, where are you going to go then? So I think he's just got to stick to his football, but it might just all be press. It's like, boy, it might be fine. I don't know.
See with that McGowan one though, and I hear what you're saying about the press maybe just needing a story and wanting to run with it. He tends to have sound bites for Celtic. He's got form for being accurate with these shit. In fact, I get the vibe of Stephen McGowan. He's the one that sort of put out there to sort of test the water, if you like, from Celtic. That's the vibe I get anyway. Very often he seems to be the ITK journal of choice, which I suppose is better than it being the Sun, which it used to be. I don't know if you remember when it was the Lenny COVID season. It seemed to be every story came out of the Sun. Now it's Stephen McGowan, but that's what leads me to think there's a bit in it, rather than it being just pure mischief making, Liam, and that's purely because he is kind of the one I would say. Once he says it, normally I go, there's got to be a bit of substance to that, and I just get the vibe it would be a message at Celtic to go, test the water with us, maybe letting the bad go, because it's likely to happen. So you go with the story and we'll see what the reaction's like. But time will tell. It'd be a real shame if it is a one in, one out though.
Well, that's your board, isn't it? It's like, our hands were tied. This was like, we couldn't really do that. I mean, fucking did it.
How did you manage to tie them yourselves?
Up the money for Starfelt. Starfelt wants it. All right, let's just sell them. It's like we get $4.5 million for Starfelt.
I think we'd be able to broke even. I think you're right.
Bizarre.
Starfelt, Juranovic, our board underperformed. They did poorly in what the value that we got back for those players of the way they were built.
The biggest violation out of that was Giakoumakis. No doubt about it. Giakoumakis was the big. Well, we barely broke even on that one, didn't we?
Aye, was same with Starfelt. Starfelt was just same for same.
Do you know what I was thinking as well?
We've missed him. He was a great
player.
Big
time.
He went to Spain for that money. That's crazy.
You're right. And do you know what else? See, what annoys me is what they done. I'm just thinking of this now. They signed a lot of these guys on fucking 5-year deals at the time, and they got a lot of praise for that. Committing to 26-year-old players, 5-year deals, new Celtic, new dawn, new era. And actually, it's all a smokescreen because the first bid that then comes in for these guys, they're letting them go anyway. So that 5-year deal was completely irrelevant, a completely redundant 5-year deal that got headlines, looked good, looked like real commitment for the club for ones that weren't project players, but actually they bit because they realised these guys are 2 years away for 30, 1 year away for 30. We need to get the money in. So there was no real commitment for the club in these guys either. And I tell you this, see from the players' point of view, you cannot blame any of them when the first bid that comes calling, the Celtic are nodding their head and biting the hand off. You go, fuck it, I'm away then. You clearly didn't value me that highly. So, anyway.
Aye.
we'll see over the next few days. I'm sure there'll be more ups and downs, hopefully more ups than downs over the next few weeks of the transfer window. But of course, we'll be here on the bus to cover any breaking stories, anything that does. Say Kuhn looks like it's happening in the next few days. That seems to be the first one in the door, but we can't stop there, Celtic. There needs to be more than just that coming in. But get yourself ready, folks, because you know that Peter Lawwell will be getting the whole January's a hard window speech ready. So just be prepared for it, guys. As Russell always says to end every show, keep your eyes on the board. So I hope you do that. Next week, obviously, I will be doing the blockbuster, the box office Friday feeling preview of Bucky Thistle at home in the Scottish Cup. That's next week's one. We're back to the usual format. I'm
looking at the date going, what the fuck's he talking about? But I thought, whoa, I stand corrected. It is Bucky Thistle, you're right.
It's box office, it is indeed. So yeah, that is next week's Friday feeling. We'll be back to the usual, talking about the game coming up. But yeah, but other than that, say Sunday Blair, I believe for David being back last week doing it, I imagine that'll be on Sunday morning. And and we'll be back to start a new week. It'll be football week again. We'll be counting down eagerly the weekend for the return of the football. It's been a long couple of weeks, but yeah, we'll be back for that. So yeah, guys, thanks for joining me again on Friday night. It's at the top of the show, the best forward line in the bus apparently. I can't remember what commenter said that, but I was like, that's a great comment. That's brilliant.
The three amigos.
Cadete
Van Hooydonk and Di Canio.
Di Canio. I'm wearing an Italian tracky top, so I guess.
Before you know that'll become political, Phil. That'll become political.
Can't be bothered with politics at all. So before we trip ourselves up and say something stupid, we'll run. We're out of here, guys. We'll catch you later. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. See yous.